congressional candidate Mike Detmer. I believe I was his first speaker at the event, and talking about our Restore Freedom petition here, and afterwards didn't make it more than 10 feet away from where I'd been speaking, and I had people approaching me. I had Holocaust survivors coming to talk to me about their story and how we need to do something just as we have written here in this constitutional amendment to make sure that we don't have that kind of thing happen again. Because this is exactly the kind of setup that things started way back in World War II. I've had many, more Holocaust survivors than I've ever encountered in my life approach me just in the last 4 weeks to talk to me about that. I've had people approach me, again, that same very event. Someone approached me to tell me her story about how basically the nursing home killed her husband and she wasn't allowed to see him. And it's hard not to think about those stories and not tear up. I've had so many countless people tell me all their stories about how because of this COVID chaos, because of not the coronavirus itself, but because of how our government is reacting to it, that people are having their lives ripped apart and ruined, and people are dying. People are dying from suicide because they're shut off from their resources and their lifelines and their family and friends and churches and schools and everything else. People are, there's a lot of people that are victims of domestic violence who they have no place to go when our state is shut down. Instances of child abuse and neglect go through the roof. And, even the World Health Organization admits to that. So, it's got to be true if they even agree to it. And those are things that were never, you can't recover. For some of these people that are going through those traumatic experiences because they're being cut off from their only lifelines, just getting back to normal it's not going to take away the trauma they've endured in these last few months because of everything. So all of this hard work that all of you guys have been doing and the sacrifices that you guys are making and the volunteers across the state, it's for people like that. I'm sure we each have had our own stories as to how this is impacting our lives. But there's for every one of us, there's another 150,000 people in our state that are experiencing the same kind of thing, if not worse. So this is a very, obviously the biggest thing in my life I've been a part of in trying to do God's work and trying to defend our Constitution. And this is, it's just an amazing experience. So I've had many people in the last 48 hours reach out to me and say they have not been able to get to a signing event or signing location all across our state for one reason or another. Not necessarily that we don't have enough people near them, but just their lives have been busy or whatever, stuff hasn't worked out. Simultaneously, in the last 48 hours or so, I've had countless captains and circulators all across our state reach out to me and say, it's too bad we're not going to collect any signatures after the 30th because we have all these huge 4th of July celebration things going on, and we could definitely get another few thousand at each of these events. You combine those two sets of information being conveyed to me over the last 48 hours, and it's been pretty obvious that although we do need the vast majority of the signatures turned into us by the 30th so we can validate signatures and have everything ready to go when we turn it into the Secretary of State, it just makes sense to say we're going to have to extend the ability to collect signatures. So as long as people get them to me by 7, 8 in the morning at the latest on July 5th, we're going to be able to do that. And it might mean that I'll have another all-nighter or two in there and validating signatures. Frank doesn't know that he signed up for those all-nighters, but...
Go Frank! I heard Jeff did too.
So yeah, anybody that wants to help validate signatures, grab your laptop and join us in Hudsonville. So, did you say, Kevin, you're going to do that?
No.
I thought I heard Adam say it.
I'll be gone. My wife and I are going on a vacation.
It's my birthday on Friday. I'm not even going on a vacation. What the heck?
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
If anybody's earned it, he is one of the people that have earned it. So
we've all done our roles.
No.
Happy birthday. Have some heart.
I think she's just scared to lose you.
It's also my husband's birthday on the 7th of July, so just so you know, we're not going anywhere because we got to count these signatures. We got to turn it in because in the end, it's got to be worth it. So, anyway, so that's kind of the announcement for the day that we are going to extend it. Again, it doesn't mean that circulators or captains should hang on to what they've got and just keep them until next weekend. We need to go through those now. We have a bunch more people showing up tomorrow to help us validate signatures and get ready to go. And the plan is, first thing Monday morning, July 6th, I will be driving over. Probably should have a convoy of my Michigan militia friends, but I will be delivering these to the Secretary of State's office. Of course, after we scan or copy every single signature sheet, because we don't trust anything the government does, especially now. So, anyway, I basically, any questions that you guys have, I'm here to answer them. The one thing, I guess, that is new that you might not know about, because when was it? Thursday, when I was in Lansing at the Medical Freedom rally and speaking there, I saw my fellow American Patriot Rally committee man, Adam. Where's Adam?
he's over here.
He's making a selfie.
I'm over here. I'm just holding up the Kevin beardless picture next to him. I had to do this, guys.
I will definitely have to check that out in a minute. But in the meantime,
it's amazing, guys.
in the meantime, Adam graciously volunteered to be the guy that people across the whole state can reach out to if they want some tips on how to go door knocking. Because I've had a ton of people that are asking, you know, hey, I'd like to go. Exactly. Thank you, Adam. I've had a ton of people saying, you know, are we going to go door to door? Are we going to be canvassing? How do I do that? Is there, you know, some way to get hooked up on how to get that done? And so Adam bravely allowed us to put his contact information on our website so we can list that and get people going. So that's awesome. But yeah, we appreciate everything that every one of you are doing. And I'm just here to answer any questions or talk about anything. Something that's super important. So we do have, of course, you know, anytime you're going to do something that's worth doing, you're going to have people that are against you, right? We all know that. Especially if you're doing God's work, well, then you're going to have a crap ton of people against you. But it is disheartening how every single person, whether they are a conservative leader in our grassroots movement, if you will, or a current legislator or judge or you know, like a Republican Party or anything like that, how they have determined it is appropriate to badmouth, if you will, our movement and what's in this constitutional amendment, many of whom have not even read it before they're trying to discredit what we're doing. But none of them have thought it appropriate to have an open dialogue about it. They're doing it all, like, I guess you could say, behind my back, right? So they know how to reach me. And anybody who's watching Facebook Live right now, that would be 616-303-0093. Call or text. Or you can email at restorefreedommi@gmail.com. If you want to send me something in the mail, well, you got my address too. It's on the bottom of the petitions. So it's disturbing that these very people that are fighting against us the most are those that are supposedly fellow advocates of the Constitution and our freedoms, and they want to supposedly make sure that people are informed before deciding whether they want to sign our petition, but they don't want to have a two-way dialogue or even a respectable debate about it. I have nothing to hide, so I'm not sure why they feel like they should be hiding. So let's help to spread the word and expose that, because if they really think that there's they have an accurate analysis of the situation and of the petition, they shouldn't be afraid. They shouldn't be hiding behind closed doors or having Zoom meetings that are only for certain participants to, participate in. They should be willing to say, this is what we think this does, and have a back and forth dialogue and allow people to ask questions. Just yesterday there was somebody, well, earlier this week, I want to say Wednesday or Thursday, I was on Theron X's show. I've been on a show before about this COVID stuff and talking about various things that I was working with the legislature and since the first week of April, trying to get them to not extend the executive order the first time. But at any rate, this time I was on a show specifically talking about the amendment, and apparently the very next caller was a wonderful individual who decided that she was going to say our efforts, our words, everything about our petition was putrid, and continued to describe how we supposedly are giving the government more power to take away our rights. So,
obviously did not read it.
That's exactly what my husband said. He was livid. He was so livid when he called me to tell me, because he was listening the very next day to my show, and then he had downloaded like the whole hour or whatever. So he heard her. I mean, he was so livid about it when he called me, not on speakerphone. Everyone in the room when I hung up was like, "Who was that?" That was my husband. Oh, we've never heard him like that before. Well, he's pretty mad. So,
have to have the right catalyst.
so I was able to get some contact information for this woman who apparently has her own radio show on Saturdays for an hour on the same radio station. And I said, "Hey, I heard that you wanted to grill me about this petition because you have some concerns and that you have a radio show today." This was yesterday, I was texting her. And she proceeded to tell me that she has so many concerns that oh, by the way, I missed the part where she said on Theron X's show 2 days prior that she was going to invite me to debate the issues on her show. So, hence the reason why I was reaching out to her. So, when I reached out to her yesterday and asked her about that and what the logistics would look like, she said that she had so many concerns that she needed to have the whole hour on the radio program devoted to complaining about what I wrote and uninterrupted. And so I said, well, that's a bit ironic that you claim you want to help people understand what they're signing before they sign it, but you don't want to have dialogue. And she's not an attorney. So I'm not sure what her legal analysis looks like, but it'd be interesting. And so she, she claims to know, more than any of us in reading this petition. And then proceeded to tell me that I was being, oh gosh, what was the word? Basically that I'm being unreasonable. That's not quite the word she said, because she needed to, I've had 3 weeks of uninterrupted ability to be unchallenged in conveying to the people what our message is. To which, of course, I informed her that no, it hasn't been unchallenged. It's just that those that are challenging it are cowards because they complain about it behind my back. They don't have the audacity or the courage, I guess I'll just say it that way, to have a public debate. Let's do it. I have no problem doing that. People don't have to agree with me. I'll respect you as long as you're respectable. We'll have a nice debate. We can do it on the steps of the Capitol, like I've challenged our AG, Nessel, to debate on the executive order constitutionality. Or we could do it, whatever, in person at a smaller gathering. It doesn't matter. I'll drive across the state if somebody wants to have me come to their community and debate what's in our petition. I have nothing to hide. Unfortunately, they do. And whether it's the Greater Oakland County Republican Club, who's doing a Zoom meeting tomorrow night with a constitutional expert judge to explain how awful my petition is, or whether it is with this woman with her radio show, or a variety of other conservative leaders in our state. Not a single one of them comes to my face or sends me an email directly or calls me directly to say, Catherine, I really have these concerns. I think we need to talk about this. Not a single one. Doesn't that say something about their character?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they have none.
Yeah. And that they have something to hide. What is their agenda? Well, I could tell you any judge who's a current judge is not going to like this amendment because it says a lot of stuff in there that's it's going to shake things up. It doesn't change our core foundations and system of government, but what it does is it takes away the crap. It takes away the confusing nature of everything and the red tape, and it makes all branches of government at all levels be much more accountable to the people. So,
As it should be.
yeah, if you think, I know those of you here in person aren't going to think this, but you watching on Facebook Live right now, if you think that we're ever going to have sitting legislators or judges or even most attorneys, right, the people getting rich off of the way that our system is messed up, if you're looking for any current government leader to be behind what we are doing, then you've missed the point of what we're doing. The whole point is to take away the power that the government officials at all levels have stolen from us in violation of our U.S. and Michigan constitutions. That's the whole point. So if you think that any of those people that are currently in possession of that stolen power are going to be on board with what we're doing, that just doesn't make sense, because they're not going to be. So, at any rate, if you want to, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. So, if you want to stick with the establishment way of doing things, if you will, or you want to stick with the, this is the way it's always done. Well, Catherine, you just can't succeed in doing it this way. That's just not, we just have to focus on one win at a time, kind of thing. If you want to do that, go ahead. But I call that insanity, because that would be doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So, at any rate, I guess for the benefit of people that might be watching us on Facebook Live, are there any questions that you guys have right now that I haven't already answered today that I can answer and benefit those that might have the same questions sitting at home? None?
When are you running for governor?
I really would like to be on the beach in Florida in a year from now with my feet in the sand every single day. But if God calls me to be governor of Michigan, I guess I would do that.
I just changed my name to God. Run for governor!
It's legal.
Amen.
Anything goes
We'll build you a beach.
Right?
The governor's mansion.
on Mackinac Island.
That's not the beach I'm looking for. I was born in the UP. I know the Michigan cold weathers, and I spent 10 years in Minnesota, also cold and snowy.
They got postponed.
I want some peace and tranquility in my life. So, at any rate, if I'm called to be here, I will be here. I'll always be coming back because my family is from here, and I was born here, and my kids were born here. All but one of my kids were born here. But my dad seems to think I'm going to be the next governor, and my 6-year-old also seems to think I'm going to be the next governor. But hey, if I can win as a write-in candidate, that would tell me something, I guess, right? So who could turn that down? Are there any other questions that we can answer for people?
So are you saying if we write you in, that you will take the job?
I would.
We have recording, just so you know.
Oh, I know why. So you don't have to record me to know that. If I tell you, it's my word. Same thing happened in the city of Belding when I sued the city manager for violating. It started because I stood up for her violating the rights of people I had never met. And I had people bring stuff to me and say, hey, you know, we trust your opinion. Can you look at what we've discovered through these FOIA requests? And I was like, all right, well, I'm just coming out of essentially maternity leave. My youngest was small. My car has eyes and a tail, or ears and a tail. It was very interesting.
Only in Freeport.
Yeah, back then I was like, all right, whatever, let me see, what do you got? And I was so disgusted at the blatant constitutional violations that were happening in the tiny little town of Belding, Michigan at that time that I said, enough is enough. And I started going to city council meetings and speaking up. And I wasn't attacking anybody. I wasn't, doing anything inappropriate. I would go to city council meetings, and during public comment time, within the time limits required by city council to speak at those meetings, I would address the whole city council and tell them exactly. The sad thing is I had a new list of violations every single week, and I would simply ask them to understand. I would say exactly what statute they were violating, in what way, and what the way that they could fix it would be. Laying it out. I'm not just complaining. Hey guys, you really need to do this to fix this. And so it was, countless people's rights were being violated in so many ways. It was just, I couldn't even understand it. And so I would go to city council meeting after city council meeting. Well, then our city manager at the time, decided that she didn't like that I was doing that. And she told some of the, leaders in the community that she now had a list. There's about 10 of us that would get up and speak every week at these meetings. She had a list of all the people that she was going to start coming after for speaking out against her at these city council meetings. And she put me right at the top of her list. And I said, ooh, that was a mistake. So she tried to come after me. The only thing she could come after me for was, because I have nothing to hide, she tried to come after me for having my business out of my house, my law firm. Saying I didn't follow the home occupancy ordinances. And I was like, yeah, you're wrong about that. So that was an interesting battle. She ended up trying to have me removed from the planning commission, a volunteer position. And also she tried to have me removed from the downtown development authority, also volunteer. And so I said enough's enough, and one day, the day she served me with our planning commission packet, it was like, if I remember correctly, it was something like 24 hours before our planning commission meeting, which is insane. You should have more notice than that. The public needs to have more notice than that. Oh, that's one of the provisions in our constitutional amendment. Anyway, being served with that, and it was like 79 pages, 95% of which was all about me and why they needed to kick me off the planning commission because I was a dissenter and I was not good for public policy in the city of Belding. So I said, you know what? Since that's how we're going to play this, I wrote a resignation letter, 5-page resignation letter to the Planning Commission, which I presented that next meeting, which went over all the ways that they had been violating our own code, our own ordinances, as a Planning Commission, but also detailing how several of the City Council members and even Planning Commission members were blatantly violating our city ordinances, and no one was doing anything about that. Whereas I actually wasn't violating our city ordinances. So, at any rate, I stayed up that whole night writing a complaint with 8 different counts that I sued our city manager with. And she didn't like that. So they decided that they would move it to federal court, to scare me, right? Because I filed in little old Ionia court. So they move it there, and I said, sweet, I'm licensed to practice law there too, and now I don't have to pay a motion filing fee. I just have to pay for parking. Great. And of course, in that system, her attorney was even worse than she was. And the things that happened were so egregious, it would take me a book to tell you about them all. But never thought that I would have the day where I would have to argue with a judge in open court, in federal district court, about the fact that they, I had to argue about my right to breastfeed my child in a case that had nothing to do with that at all. They wanted to set up depositions that would go like 10 hours long and all this kind of stuff, and I said, no, I can't do that. I have a right to be present at the depositions, and I nurse my child. And I actually had to argue my right to nurse my own child because they wanted to force me to, do all kinds of, pumping and bottle feeding and all kinds. And I'm like, are you really having this debate right now? This is not okay. Besides which, they were trying to have the depositions in the neighboring county, although Greenville's very close to Belding. In fact, I lived an eighth of a mile from the county line, but you can't do the depositions in the neighboring county just because the city manager's dad was an attorney with a law office right there. I mean, anyway. So next came something that I want you guys to all keep in mind. This is actually a really important thing. In the same very case, I can't skip the part where I continue to talk to my city council members and ask them what they would like to see happening in this court case. Because I wasn't suing for money. I was suing for change. And, of course, her attorney was trying to make it all about money. And so I said, what are some things that you would like? Because even though I'm technically suing you guys, I'd like to know what your thoughts are representing the people of Belding, because we need to make change. What do you want that change to look like? What kind of transparency? What kind of things do you want to see happening in our community? And the city manager said, don't talk to city council anymore. And her attorney said, you can't talk to my clients without me present. And I said, actually, yes, I can. So what she first decided she would do, because I kept talking to city council members and kept going into open city council meetings and talking and saying my piece, she told her police chief to investigate me for felony bribery because I was asking them what they wanted to do in the case. Wow. So, they investigated it by not talking to me at all, not talking to either of the two or three city council members that I was allegedly bribing, and talked to a bunch of other irrelevant people that had nothing to do with anything. And then determined this case is so great against Katherine, we are going to send it over to the Ione County Sheriff's Department for them to continue investigating. Well, in the very first meeting that I had with the detective from Ione County Sheriff's Department, he realized not even close to bribery. Not even close. I didn't threaten anyone, which wouldn't be bribery anyway. I didn't promise them anything. I merely said, I'm a fellow resident of this community. I want to know your input on what I should be asking for in terms of change. So in that very first meeting with him, he assured me that he would be recommending the case be closed out and we move on from there. So when that didn't pan out for them, the then prosecutor, who may or may not be a judge now, decided that although he had nothing to do with this case at this point, he decided that he would try to get me disbarred for felony bribery. That was actually the first time I was allowed to see the police reports, because he submitted them unredacted to the Attorney Grievance Commission, who then turned them over to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, did you guys read this? It says it's not bribery. So that was fun. And since that wasn't enough either, they were trying, the attorney was trying, this overpriced attorney that I paid for with my tax dollars, was trying to get me to, trying to get me in trouble with the court as well, saying that I don't have a right to talk to his client, because we have this rule that attorneys cannot talk to other attorneys' clients without the attorney being present. Funny thing is, that rule has a footnote, and it says, except for, where you have the constitutional right to do that, and it even gives the example of when someone such as myself is suing a government body, I still have the right to talk to the government body without the attorney present, because that's kind of guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution. So he didn't like that. So he actually filed a motion against me to try to get me in trouble in contempt of court in federal district court in Michigan. And so I had to file my paperwork, and I literally had to argue in federal district court in Grand Rapids the issue of whether I could talk to my elected representatives. So I got to the point where the judge said, "Are you telling me I can't even require you to simply inform opposing counsel before you go speak to his clients?" And I said, "Absolutely, that's what I'm saying to you, sir. You have zero right to abrogate, diminish, abridge my constitutional rights in any way, shape, or form." And so, yeah, I've been fighting this fight for a while now. And it's not easy. I mean, I was sick to my stomach, to be honest with you, to tell a judge, a federal district court judge, "Sir, you have zero right to tell me what to do because the Constitution guarantees my rights and you're trying to take those away from me." It's not an easy thing to do, but I did, because I'm always better at doing the right thing.
I thank God you're on our side.
So that's what we need to do. We need to encourage more people to be willing to stand up and do the right thing and to stand up for their own rights. And long after this proposal does make it onto the November 3rd ballot, we will be continuing to educate the people all across the state of Michigan on what their rights are. And in fact, I've made it my personal mission whenever I see teenagers at any of my rallies, I single them out. Usually when I don't have the microphone in my hand anymore. And I go up to them and I say, "What are you guaranteed in the First Amendment?" Or actually just tell me anything about the Bill of Rights. What are your rights? And I tell them that I will be following up with them, because, they don't ever get the answer right? They might have one teeny little piece, but I tell them the next time I see you, I'm going to be grilling you on what your constitutional rights are. I actually had, that happened yesterday. I did that to another 17-year-old. And by 6 hours later, I had an email from that young man thanking me for calling him out and telling me that my passion for defending our Constitution and coming in and answering questions and explaining things like this to people is what has kept him and his whole family engaged in the process and desiring to do the same thing and help educate the members of their community. So that's a blessing that I can't even put to words how awesome it is to hear that from a 17-year-old about how he is preparing to defend his Constitution at such a young age. So we need to continue doing that. All of us can. I'm not special. I'm no more special than anybody else. That's what that woman said from the radio. She said that I'm in a position of power. And so I need to just give her this 1-hour radio show to trash talk my amendment because it would be unfair since I have so much power. And I'm thinking, power of what? I mean, I have the power of God behind me because I'm doing his work, but besides that, like, what earthly power are you talking about? I'm not an office holder. I'm a mom. I'm a homeschooling mom. I have 4 kids. I'm a wife. I'm a business owner. I haven't even taken I took 1 new client in the last, 3 months because he lost his job for defending the Constitution in the city of Lowell. Aside from that, I kind of felt like I had to take that case. Aside from that, I have turned down literally thousands of people right now, and I'm telling them, I'm sorry I can't help you. I have to focus on this ballot. I have to focus on putting freedom back on the ballot in November because that is the way we're going to affect change. If I focus on 1 lawsuit or even 10 or 20, that's not going to affect the kind of change that we need here. So, it's awesome that this woman thinks I have a ton of power, but I don't really know what she's talking about. So I think the power she's possibly considering is the power of the grassroots movement, the power of the people, like truly, not just in a saying. So at any rate, that very long story was just to show you guys that we got to do what's right no matter what. And I'm willing to do what's right no matter what. I certainly didn't have a ton of people, you know, defending me on social media or at every city council meeting, or, you know, I honestly, the only person that ever came and supported me in those federal court hearings was my husband. Not anybody else, nobody in my family, no friends, neighbors, nobody. No law enforcement officers, nobody that had sworn an oath to defend the U.S. or Michigan constitutions. No one came and supported me in those hearings. And so, if I was willing to do it alone then, you can imagine how much I'm willing to do now with all of you guys in this fight with me. So, do know though, like Kevin has pointed out recently, it is going to get ugly. And they probably won't get terribly ugly about you guys, but I know it's going to get ugly about me. They're going to try to come up with whatever they can. The funny thing is, when you're totally honest about your life, no one can blackmail you. I mean, I don't know, they can try something, but I've been divorced, I've been a single mom, I got pregnant at 19, and I was a single mom, and, you know, that's probably the thing that I guess people could try to throw in my face. I made bad choices when I was a teenager, but I love my son, he's awesome, and I wouldn't trade him for anything in the whole entire world. My baby boy Alex is actually coming home tonight, so I'm trying not to cry right now because my 6-foot-plus child, who clearly I'm not old enough to have birthed, but I did. Yeah, I can't wait to see that kid. Anyway, yeah, so it's going to get ugly, but we can't give up. And I've had a ton of people telling me that they're losing friends. They're losing, you know, neighbors or family members won't talk to them anymore because they simply asked if they would be interested in signing this petition. That does suck. But if people are willing to exclude you from their lives because you want to stand up and do the right thing, it's going to be their loss more than it is yours. And we've got to stick together and we've got to do what's right. So, to that end, any of the evildoers who may be watching on any Facebook Live videos, I know you're coming for me, and I really don't care. I'm going to keep doing the right thing. So, whether it's, you know, the Attorney General of the state of Michigan or the governor herself or any of you, I would face you myself, but it's really awesome to know that I have literally thousands of new friends, and I certainly have enjoyed having my Michigan militia and Michigan open carry friends.
Catherine's Army.
Yeah, we've got God's Army, and so bring it.
The original Homeland Security.
What's that?
The original Homeland Security.
Right, the original Homeland Security. Exactly. So, yeah, so if you're out there watching and listening and you're thinking of ways to try to come after me, you just keep in mind, I'm not stupid, and neither are my Second Amendment friendly friends, and they're pretty serious about trying to help keep me safe and keep the rest of us safe when we're fighting for freedom. So, with all that.